I'm testing. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing. Can you hear me? Is there anybody out there? All right, well, it looks like it's working, so I'm just gonna go. Let's see. All right, excellent. So, good morning, everybody. This is George Donnelly, and I'm going to talk to you about, if my computer will cooperate, I'm going to talk to you about We Won't Fly. We Won't Fly is an airport freedom advocate that Jim Babb and I created last November. It's a single-issue campaign project. It's not explicitly a libertarian thing, but, in the end, just like everything looks like a nail to a carpenter, everything to a libertarian is some kind of campaign, I guess. But this is a single-issue campaign about airport freedom, human rights, and basic human dignity. And the title of the talk is How We Won't Fly Reached the Eye of a Media Storm and Got Dozens of International Mainstream Media Interview Requests last November. It was pretty insane, the level of success that Jim and I met with. Last November, the Transportation Security Administration, that is the TSA, rolled out a new security theater regimen in some U.S. airports. Now you face the risk of having to choose from either going through a scanner or an enhanced pat-down. The scanner takes what amounts to naked pictures of you, and some of them use x-rays. The new pat-down involves reaching inside your pants and touching your genitals and other sensitive private body areas. This is obviously, some people will call it a violation of the Fourth Amendment. Other people will just call it a violation of your rights, a violation of your human rights. Others just hate it and don't even have the words to put to it about how repulsive this is. I talk about it as simply an affront, a trampling of basic human dignity. This is kind of a talking point we had some success with. It goes beyond political stuff. It doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or Republican. Dignity is not something that you hear Congress people talking about, and so that's a talking point that really goes beyond any kind of existing political boundaries. And while the campaign didn't get as much enthusiastic support from people on the left as I would have liked, it still reached those people. It's hard to escape this left-right, this red team, blue team thing. And, like everything, we fell victim to it a little bit because there's a Democrat in the White House. The great majority, or at least the most enthusiastic or vociferous people involved in the We Won't Fly thing are Republicans and people on the right. But there are still a good number of people on the left. And so in that way, we had a little bit of success transcending those boundaries. Like a lot of tyranny, this seemed like a hopeless cause back there on November 5th. A runaway federal agency using funds for something other than the congressionally approved purpose, police state, claims that it was entirely voluntary because you don't have to fly, I guess you know, a sales tax on food is voluntary because you don't have to eat either, right? Yeah. 98% of the population, at least according to the mainstream media, or who probably got that figure from the TSA, were giving full and cheerful compliance. That part was especially hard. Although they kept revising that figure down. At the beginning, the TSA was saying, and the mainstream media was parroting, that it was 99% or more full and cheerful compliance. And that number kept falling. And the media was curious, but not entirely receptive. And actually, we made them receptive. You know, it was kind of like feeling around in the dark. And we got lucky. And that is what makes this topic so fascinating and important, if I do say so myself. I hope you'll pardon that. Jim Babb, initiated the We Won't Fly project by suggesting a Thanksgiving Eve demonstration at Philadelphia International Airport. After he nagged me about it several times, I got the hint and volunteered to help him out with a website, as is often my wont. Actually, he sent this suggestion to a bunch of Philly libertarians, and no one was interested. Jim is a smart, personable guy, and we've worked together before, so I felt bad that no one was picking up the idea. This is to show how dense I am. That's primarily why I volunteered, because I wasn't yet informed about what was going on. So, I mean, there was an alignment of the stars here. Then the website took on a life of its own. I started blogging, Twittering, Facebooking, and it's a good thing. That was really laying the foundation. Just having those presences, having a few people connected to those Twitter and Facebook presences, a few people, you know, I had a little widget there showing how many people were subscribed to the blog. Just having that there and in place brought in a good number of extra people and gave us credibility with the media. You know, it showed that we knew what we were doing, and we were professional about how we were going about it. The website design also helped, because people seemed to be wowed by it. You know, I use WordPress for that website. I cooked up an image with my self-taught graphic design skills, which are not that good, using GIMP, which is a free open source image editor, and I bought a theme, a WordPress theme, which looks pretty good. So yeah, I just want to make sure I'm still on my air. You guys still hearing me? Just want to make sure I'm not talking into a dead mic here. All right, seems like I'm good. So, that initial foundational setup, excuse me, it's a good thing it was there. We wouldn't have had this success without it, because we looked credible. And that is very important when dealing with the mainstream media. Let's see. Another thing, when you're doing a single issue campaign, whether it's, you know, you're marketing something like PorkFest, or you're trying to spring somebody out of prison, like what happened with Brian Aitken, or you're just trying to bring attention to somebody's cause, like when Pete Eyre was arrested for wearing a hat in court in Keene. It's really important to think big. I can't overestimate the importance of thinking big. And I'll explain this a little better by explaining the opposite. Thinking small, in other words, not expecting to have victory, not expecting hundreds or thousands or millions of people to visit your website or retweet your tweets or like your Facebook page, is like cutting yourself off at the knees. You know, it's like saying, okay, I want to run a marathon, but you know, let me just hack off my feet. I mean, how are you going to run a marathon if you don't have feet? You know what I'm saying? You gotta think big. You have to expect. You have to think ahead and think about what victory would look like. You know, what is your ultimate goal? It's not just you're going to put something out there and make these ideological claims and not back them up, and you know, fight the good fight and go down in flames. No, I mean that's not optimal. So you have to think about what victory is going to look like, and you have to plan for that, including provisioning the resources, or at least having them ready to compensate for that. For example, Chris Lawless was on Stossel on Fox a couple days, Friday maybe, Thursday, and enormous traffic for the Free State Project, but they weren't prepared for it, and the website crashed, and they lost some of those visitors. I don't want to harp on the Free State Project any more than I already have, but you know, that's kind of a recent example of not planning for success, not thinking big. So don't limit yourself. The sky really is the only limit, and it's kind of an unlimit. It's not really a limit there. People with personal stories of abuse poured in early on in this campaign, early on around November 5th or 8th, around there, because this is an issue that had been bottled up for years, especially older people, people with prosthetics, people with special medical conditions. They had been bearing the brunt of the TSA airport checkpoint tyranny for years. So immediately their stories came in. And then Meg McLean, libertarian activist in New Hampshire, she tried to fly back to New Hampshire from Orlando, Florida. The TSA acted very improperly towards her, and she handled the situation like an activist, and she ended up not flying. Then she did an interview on Free Talk Live, Ian Freeman and Mark Edge's radio show, freetalklive.com. And on a lark, I thought, well, this is on topic. I'll give it a shot. On a lark, I grabbed the audio and put it together with some pictures of Meg, who is, of course, an attractive young lady. And I uploaded it to YouTube. It was a really crappy vid because I didn't put the proper time into it. I screwed it up, but at least the audio and some of the pics were showing up right. And this is another lesson that was highlighted for me by this experience is you have to fail 1,000 times before you can succeed. So I'd been Twittering, and I'd been posting to the blog and the Facebook page and making a little noise here and there. And each time I did that, although it contributed to success, it didn't achieve success for me. So technically, you know, within the context of this discussion, that was failure. But I had to keep failing. I had to keep doing these things over and over again. I had to keep trying. I had to persevere. And so I grabbed the video and then I posted it to the We Won't Fly blog. Wow. Okay. Her story resonated with hundreds of thousands of people. The view count on that, just the original one, because it was mirrored, just the original YouTube video is approaching 1 million. For a day or two, it was the #1 or #2 top viewed video on YouTube. Okay, I mean, it was almost accidental that I put that on YouTube, and it was the #1 or #2 video for 2 or 3 days there on YouTube. So you never know what's going to click with people. I mean, there's some rules for that kind of thing that you can follow, but I got really lucky. And why? Just because I keep trying. Okay, that's all. I'm not some kind of media genius. I just kept trying, and you can do the same thing with your cause. And that's as far as I got with my prepared presentation because I've been so busy working on this conference. Anyway, it just snowballed from there. And I mean, everybody came out of the woodwork on that one. And the media covered it. Small TV stations, everybody. And then the Washington Post called. And Jim got a quote in a reporter's article in the Washington Post. A reporter who was very sympathetic to our cause and seemed to be waiting for someone like us to come along, which is another thing that has been surprising that I've learned from this. Radical activists like you and me are in short supply. The leadership we can provide, not just to each other, and by leadership I don't mean, giving and taking orders. I mean inspirationship. The inspirationship that we can give because of what we know and the truth that we feel is a value outside of our community, outside of the people we know. If I was, into kind of anarcho-communist slogans and stuff, I'd say we're the vanguard of the revolution. Because the radical leadership or inspirationship that Jim and I provided to all these people that they took up, really made a huge difference. So the Washington Post article went out, and we were kind of, wondering where it's going to go from here. And, as I tend to do, I said, we got to put out a press release. So in a matter of a few hours, our you guys, members of the Libertarian community, Facebook friends, raised the $700 to pay for a PR Newswire 400-word press release. And I think by this time we had caught on to the opt-out day concept, which was put forward by Brian Soderbergh. And so I set up a page for that on our website. I set up a map showing a Google map showing where there would be protests, or as we called them, outreach events at airports for opt-out day, November 24th, 2010. And up at the top of our page, not only did the page look decent, but I put a slogan up there, something like jam the TSA checkpoints until they roll back the scanning and groping, and it's in a kind of radical font. This played a big part, I think. So we sent out this press release about opt-out day, and I set up a whole page about it, decent looking, with the map, and I started contacting libertarian activists that I know to lead protests at the different airports, and eventually we signed up 30, I believe it was 30 airports. So as these different people signed up, that map, that Google map, the embedded Google map on the web page, started to fill up. Let me see if I can get that that map up. I think that was an important thing to have. Not only did it look cool technologically and make up. Sorry, it's not. I must have taken it down. Not only did it look cool technologically, and it showed that we were capable technologically and probably had some money behind us or whatever, which we didn't. It showed that it wasn't just Jim and I. It showed that we had national reach. And, this was really the libertarian community masquerading as We Won't Fly. I mean, honestly. So, that could be done with any issue. Any issue. You could say, roll back prohibition, and then you organize protests among the libertarian community in 50 cities. Put that up, put up a press release, the whole thing. And, you look instantly very credible with the national reach. So anyway, we sent out the press release. It went out Monday. And And due to the radical call to action that we had. So we kind of hit a trifecta or a quadfecta or whatever. We looked credible. We had personal stories of abuse from people who liked us and our website for whatever reason. Really, we were kind of the only people. This is why I say our libertarian anarchist community inspirationship is desperately needed out there in the world, because we were the only people who stood up to do this. And so people flocked to us. People who aren't libertarians or anarchists, they're just regular folks. And so they flocked to us with these very authentic personal stories of abuse at the hands of the TSA. So radical call to action. The authentic stories. The Meg McLean thing. Everybody was abuzz about that. What else? The great-looking website, the credible social media presences. And, you know, by now, our Facebook page had 5,000 or 8,000 people, fans. And the radical call to action was a little scary. To say that we were going to jam TSA checkpoints, that was scary to people. And scary, you know, you had scary and you had credible together. And that's national news. So, press release went out and immediately we were flooded, Jim and I. We were flooded for 3 weeks with, media appearances. Because shortly we realized this is not just a Philadelphia issue. This is not just a United States issue, not even just a North American issue. This is a worldwide issue because people travel to and from the United States from all over the world. New York, for example, some people call it the capital of the world, and a lot of people have to come here and go out. So we got requests not just from Washington Post, New York Times, ABC, CBS, NBC, CNBC, CNN. Let's see. A whole bunch of local TV shows, affiliates of mainstream media shows, a whole bunch of radio shows, a lot of them national radio shows, a lot of them conservative radio shows. Russia Today, Press TV of Iran, major media in Mexico, Colombia, Argentina, Japan, Ireland, several other places in Europe, Spain. And I speak Spanish, so we issued a press release in Spanish. So we got U.S. Spanish language media too, with the help of Darren Wolf, who helped me translate that. And I did interviews in Spanish. It was absolutely insane. And another thing that happened was that it was a slow news time. And because November 24th, the day before Thanksgiving, is a big airplane travel day, those were the other two critical factors, because we could have had everything. But if the media wasn't short of other stories, we wouldn't have gotten so much coverage. And if it wasn't that, here we were posing a credible threat for a reason that a lot of people could understand and empathize with on the biggest, so people think, I don't think it's actually right, but on at least one of the biggest airline travel days of the year. So, the planets really aligned here. We got really lucky. But I think this, you don't need this level of success with every project in order to have a big impact for liberty. And so I think these principles can be applied to any cause, to any marketing project, especially cause stuff, libertarian stuff, to have great success. So, and even today, we continue, even after and you know what, the greatest part was that we forced the TSA to stand down. And this has been confirmed many times. You know, it's almost like a UFO story at this point, because the media eventually, they overcommitted themselves. I mean, AP, they sent out reporters to like several cities to watch the protest. And when they saw, see, they got confused, and this is partly my fault. Partly they heard what they wanted to hear. They wanted to hear the scary, radical, credible threat story. But our primary message was always, don't fly. And that's the message that people most took to, because we got reports from everywhere that traffic or levels inside the airports were lower. There were fewer passengers than expected. But when the media, who are all camped out everywhere, waiting to see all these protests and the long lines, because they're all scared of the long lines that this was supposedly going to cause, they didn't see the long lines. And so they immediately jumped to the conclusion around 7 a.m., a Bloomberg reporter, 6 or 7 a.m., immediate, boom, failed. Opt-out day fails. I mean, they prepared this narrative. They accelerated, they shaped this whole thing. Anyway, so the story was it failed. But the fact is, a lot of people didn't fly. There wasn't so much coverage of the 50-mile-long traffic jam outside of Boston because more people were driving and other things like that. They never mentioned, although we got this from several, even in mainstream sources, they never mentioned that the TSA stood down, and they weren't sending hardly anyone through the scanners. They were sending people through the metal detectors. They weren't doing pat downs, and that was the whole weekend, the whole Thanksgiving Day weekend. So the most satisfying part is that we, these scary anarchists, got the TSA to stand down for a weekend. Even though that's not the officially accepted narrative, but I know we did it. And even after about a month or so after this, even though our media appearances dropped to zero after that, about a month after that, I caught the TSA agents trolling our website repeatedly, and that made huge news in the the social media sphere, and it didn't make TV or mainstream news, but it crashed our website because of the enormous amount of traffic, and that's an example of not being prepared. And even today, we got 30,000 visits to the site the other day due to a personal story of abuse at the hands of the TSA. And this issue continues, and we have plans to ramp it up again. So that's about as far as I'm going to go. I am going to take your questions now. Glad you guys could hear me fine. I'll scroll back and see if we got any questions. Oh yeah, I can take Skype calls if you want to talk to me live here on Skype. My Skype nick should be in your window there, GeorgeDonnelly.com. I'm actually going to switch to a different view here. There's my Skype nick, and I can bring you on either audio and or video. Okay, David asks, what has been the main lesson you've learned from dealing with the mainstream media? I think the main lesson is you have to be a very good speaker. in order to, because when you get on the radio or you get on the TV, you only have maybe 60 seconds to 5 minutes at the most to really get your point across. And so before you even go on, you need to figure out, what is your point? What is the thing you're going to, because you have to repeat it. You can't just say this is not when you do an interview thing with media, this is not a place where you build a logical argument. It's not a philosophical discussion. It's marketing. And it's marketing to a big audience. And so you have to take a point and you have to ram it home again and again and again. And your explanations have to be really short. So, for example, early on in the process with We Won't Fly, especially when we were getting media requests for local We Won't Fly people in different cities across the country, we helped put a lot of libertarian activists in front of their local TV stations in places like Kansas City, Los Angeles, Dallas, Denver, yeah, Philadelphia, New York. This was satisfying for me because I got to shine a light on really great liberty activists all over the country. And so one of the things I did was I put together the talking points. Just really short stuff. And then I made a video about it, and I sent this out to the people who were doing videos. You have to make sure everybody is on the same page. You can't have one person talking about the scanners are bad because they're going to give you cancer. Well, okay, let me take an example. For example, we were saying, well, they're not effective. At one point, our talking points evolved to the most effective thing was, it's just not effective, okay? Because everybody's quibbling about privacy, about health. They're just not effective. And so someone went on in New York and said, they're violating our Fourth Amendment, and they're, it's part of a plot, blah, blah, all kinds of kind of conspiratorial and entirely off-topic things. They're not going to change anyone's mind. They're only, the people whose minds that could change are already with you. So it's very important to practice speaking before you go on with the media. You should do it with a friend. You should do it by yourself, but you have to practice, because otherwise you'll be full of So that's the most important thing. Okay, we've got a call here. Hello.
Hey,
Lauren.
Hey, yes, I have a question.
Hold on, Lauren.
Since the
I don't have something configured
media was not
right. Are you there, Lauren?
responsive to the your program for the We Won't Fly thing, are they called it a failure? Was wondering in the future if you're worried about that happening again and be like, the boy who cried wolf, they won't listen to you anymore.
Okay. Sorry, guys. Okay, Kevin asks, do you think it was the issue in particular that made it easier to gain notoriety? It seems that going through naked scanners offended people. Yes, it was something that touched, that's a good point, yes. And especially, it's something that affected the reporters themselves, the media people themselves. They could empathize with our complaint because they had to go through it themselves. So absolutely, and that's probably the more important part, the fact that they could empathize with the complaint themselves because they had experienced it. Okay, let me try to... Hold on, Lauren. Is it legal? David asks, is it legal to film or record TSA checkpoints whether you are loitering? I understand it's legal to record the checkpoint, but yeah, this is a distinction I don't get. It's legal to record it, even according to the TSA's own rules, but you're not allowed to record their actual security procedures. Although I have seen some people record that with their own position, with the permission of TSA. All right. Lauren, do you hear me?
I hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, excellent. Okay, give me a sec. There's Lauren. Welcome, Lauren. So what did you want to talk about?
My question was, in the future, since the media called the We Won't Fly Day a failure at 7 a.m., they're like all set to dump on your movement, or on the things you're trying to advance. Are you afraid in the future that the media will just say, "Oh, it's George Donnelly. Well, forget about him"? And
Yeah, that's definitely a concern. Although, just the other day, Joe Sharkey of the New York Times, who is a columnist and concerned about this issue, he wanted to talk to Jim and I. So I don't think we're blackballed by any means. I think from the media's perspective, they're not going to judge whether we were successful or not. From our point of view, they're going to judge whether they were successful in engaging their audience about an issue. And they got 3 weeks of media coverage out of us. And actually, another satisfying thing about what we did was we got the administrator Pistol on national TV talking to media people, doing interviews and answering our kinds of questions for a whole week leading up to opt-out day. And in fact, our main talking point was about how this tramples basic human dignity, and we even got him to repeat that. I mean, saying that it was important to him that people's dignity be respected. So I don't think we're blackballed by any means. We just need to evolve our approach. Like if we say, all right, let's have another opt-out day, that's going to fall flat with the media, although it could be a successful thing. You could argue that all the media attention kind of screwed it up because the TSA backed down and didn't give us a chance to protest. So media success and actual activism success can kind of be two different things. Does that answer your question, Lauren?
yeah, I agree. I think most times that any publicity is good publicity.
Amen. Amen. Did you want to ask anything else?
No, Tyler, I would like to comment on the cool technical abilities of your Justin TV thing. So.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm using Wirecast to do that. It's very cool, definitely.
Okay, so on to other questions.
Okay. Thanks, Lauren. Have a great day. Alrighty. Yeah, Lauren, I guess, doesn't have video with her Skype, or didn't turn it on. But I can show, if somebody wants to call in and do a video Skype, video and audio, I can show that on the channel. Okay, any other questions? You can call in by Skyping me at georgedonnelly.com. That's not the website address specifically, but that's my Skype username. And yeah, expanding on that thing about how we got John Pistol, the TSA administrator, to be on national TV for a whole week. He was doing morning shows, he was doing radio, just doing damage control, and that was a pretty amazing result. I was pretty shocked by that. And watching him on one morning show, and he said, hey, we're sensitive to people's dignity. We don't want to, we want to protect people's dignity. I mean, that to me, hearing him, it was so surreal hearing him repeat what our primary talking point was. I mean, we really won the propaganda battle there. So Tanya says the interview with Meg McLean is the first she'd heard of the Free State Project in Free Keene, and that's pretty cool. And that gives you an idea of how we can cross-pollinate all the different kind of things that are going on in the libertarian community. For example, yesterday I was on Scott Horton's anti-war radio show talking about Agora.io. But, we were talking about agorism, and so I snuck something in about PorkFest and how, all the cool stuff that goes on there. And, he's got a decent-sized audience. And so, but it has to be tasteful when you do that. For example, sometimes, especially the Free State people, are so desperate for media attention that I noticed one recently got an interview during this whole hullabaloo and just kept repeating freestateproject.org, so much so that it was detrimental to the media appearance. And so you have to do it in tasteful and relevant ways. I can't stress that enough. It has to be relevant. Because if you get on CBS News and they're talking about one thing with you, and you're talking about something else, and it's so obvious that it's a marketing pitch, it makes you look terrible. Also, when you're doing a single issue like this, hey Jake, hold on just a second. When you're doing a single issue like this, it's so important not to push other issues, not to mix in other issues. This is why I set up an independent website for We Won't Fly. Because if I mix that together with my blog or another project, that's going to make like there's an ulterior motive, and it's going to turn people off. Or as one local meetup person that we pushed an interview off to, he brought in his local meetup group into an interview that was specifically about We Won't Fly, and that's very tasteless. All right. Hello, Jake. Do you have video?
No, I don't actually.
No problem. All right. So, what's your question, Jake?
Yeah. Well, I was wondering about you're talking about media appearances here, and it seems to me that at some point we may get to the point where people no longer trust the media at all, or give so little consideration to it that it becomes less important. Mm-hmm. And so my question is, what is like media appearances 2.0? Like where's the spotlight to go to? Is it like Slashdot or Twitter, or what is it?
That's a great question, and I think we're, all of us in the Liberty community, we're doing it right now. As much as I have problems with Facebook, but right now it is a powerful generator of attention and discussion and action. When I have an idea, I take it straight to my Facebook community, my Facebook network, I should say, and I get a lot of great feedback. Another great way to foment discussion and projects and whatnot is reddit.com, reddit.com. It's mostly it's a techie leaning forumy kind of thing, but it has a libertarian community with 30,000 folks there, and even though it's kind of techie and lefty, there is a civil rights are very important to the core of the Reddit community. So when I got arrested in Allentown last year, or I should say before that, I was produced 3 videos that showed Jim Babb, Julian Heiklin, and I facing off with thugs in front of these federal courthouses where we were handing out pamphlets. And in one, 17 of these marshals and federal cops and local cops came out, and we survived it unscathed. But I got 2 of them on tape threatening me in such an obvious and blatant way. And so these videos I uploaded to Reddit, and they loved them. And so when I got arrested, a friend on Reddit said, "Hey, this Redditor who's been posting these videos you love is in trouble." And they helped me raise thousands of dollars for my legal defense. So I think things like Reddit and Facebook are kind of the kernel, the genesis, and blogging are the genesis of Media 2.0. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it sounds good. I've seen Reddit once or twice. I've gone on there to see articles people have sent me, and there's certainly I would almost put Facebook and Reddit into separate categories, because it seems like Reddit's for a much broader or a much larger audience, where Facebook is sort of more of the grapevine effect. You know, you send it to a friend and they send it to a friend. Is that how you see it, or not?
Yeah,
really?
yeah. Facebook is very much a person-to-person grapevine effect, just like you said. Whereas Reddit, you know, if you post something and you title it in a way that tickles people's fancy, there can produce massive amounts of traffic and massive amounts of discussion. And the people on Reddit are generally very thoughtful and open-minded and non-ideological, very practical. And so you know, oh, and for example, one of the other groups that arose to help us, that we worked together with to combat the TSA nonsense, arose out of Reddit. And they formed their own community on Reddit called Operation Grabass. And there's 6,000 people there in that community. So, yeah, you're right. They operate differently, but I think they are really the only, in addition to blogging, really the only, and perhaps live streaming stuff, the only social media that really generates any kind of significant attention and discussion.
Well, very good. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Jake. Have a great day.
Yep, you too.
Bye-bye. Yeah, David says, correction, there is the A3 Reddit. Yeah, that's right, but it's not very well trafficked. And I urge all libertarians to register an account with Reddit as soon as possible, because as you accumulate more time and more links posted, more comments posted to Reddit, your credibility there increases. For example, you know, my karma score is not that high, but I've been there for more than 4 years. And so that gives me a little bit more credibility there. So anybody else want to Skype in and ask me questions? Yeah, David says Reddit is now down, and that's the problem. And this is a very libertarian kind of thing. The guys who started Reddit, there were 3 or 4 guys, and I think Y Combinator helped them. Y Combinator is kind of an online business incubator thing. And they got an offer to sell Reddit was doing great until this, and they sold it to Condé Nast, which is a magazine publisher. And so now Condé Nast has a death grip on their neck. They were saying the other day they wanted a new hard drive, $200. Condé Nast says, "Oh, this other magazine, they don't need that. So why do you need that?" They totally do not comprehend that Reddit is different from their other media properties. And so Reddit is dying a slow death, which is very sad. Hopefully something's going to happen to fix that soon. Yeah, bad cop, no donut. No donut is a good Reddit subreddit too, as Kevin says. So any more? Sorry. So we still have a few minutes. If somebody has a cause that they want to get more traffic, maybe you could mention here, and I could give you some ideas about how to do that. Yeah, David says there are a whole bunch of subreddits for libertarian folk, but really the only one with any significant number of members or traffic is R Libertarian, the subreddit. So you go to reddit.com/reddit.com/r/libertarian. Yeah, and I'm an admin on R. The Agora subreddit, so we definitely got to get that rolling, as David says. Amen. So anybody got a cause that they want to get some attention, and I could probably give you an idea. We have about 2 or 3 minutes left. Where do we go from here with We Won't Fly? Well, we just released, with all the radiation from Japan stuff and the Libya no-fly zone, we released a press release. We didn't pay for it. We just sent it out to a list of people, media people we have, calling for a no-fly zone in U.S. airports. Kind of a joke. It didn't get much attention. Now, the U.S. Travel Association or organization, it's an airline trade group thing, is pushing something called Trusted Traveler, which is where you trade in all your personal information in order for some kind of pass to get you through airport checkpoints faster. This is tantamount to an internal passport, and we're going to resist this big time as soon as the conference is over. We're going to issue, one of the paid press releases. One of the most alarming things about this is the opposition was paying attention during the whole We Won't Fly thing, and they're using some of our rhetoric to push this trusted traveler thing. It's really pissed me off. So we're going to hit that hard and see what we can do there. Is this monkey wrenching? David asks. I don't really have that purpose in mind, but if I can throw some monkey wrenches, yeah, I would love to. I think there's a fine line, Alaric asks, between what about exaggerating stories? Should activists exaggerate their plight? I think there's a fine line between adding a slight bit of drama, making your story a little bit more dramatic, and exaggerating. So I think it's important to stick to the facts, put the facts out there clear and even against you slightly, and then add a little drama to it. Make it a little more dramatic. There's nothing wrong with making your plight a little more dramatic. Just don't, there's a fine line there. Alrighty, so I got to go because Pasha's waiting. Pasha Roberts is giving the next talk. He's the Silver Circle movie guy. Thank you guys so much, and enjoy the day. By the way, I have a chip in on the speakers page if you want to send me a few bucks. Thanks.